Every night before bed, Lisa would climb into her small wooden bed and wait for her mother's stories. But these weren't regular fairy tales about princesses or talking animals. Her mother, Rosa, told strange stories about visitors who came to their quiet desert town many years ago. Rosa would sit on the edge of the bed, her voice soft in the dim light. She talked about people who looked almost normal, but something was different about them. Their skin seemed to glow slightly, like moonlight on water. Their eyes held secrets that seemed older than time itself. When they looked at you, Rosa said, it felt like they could see right into your heart and know everything about you. Lisa loved these bedtime stories, even though they gave her goosebumps sometimes. Her mother described how these mysterious visitors would appear without warning. They moved silently through the streets at night, never making any noise with their feet. Some people in town claimed they never saw them at all, but Rosa insisted she had talked with them many times. The most interesting part of Rosa's stories was about one particular visitor. This was a young woman who looked like she might be around 18 or 19 years old, but Rosa always said this girl carried herself like someone much, much older. She walked with confidence and spoke with wisdom that didn't match her youthful appearance. This mysterious girl had shown special interest in Rosa's family. She would ask detailed questions about their relatives, about their dreams for the future, and about what they hoped their children would become. Rosa remembered how the girl would nod thoughtfully at every answer, as if she was taking mental notes about everything. During their conversations, the girl would sometimes share glimpses of knowledge that seemed impossible. She knew things about the town's history that weren't written in any books. She could predict weather patterns weeks in advance. Once, she even warned Rosa about a flash flood that happened exactly 3 days later, just as she had said. Lisa would listen to these stories with wide eyes, pulling her blanket up to her chin. Her mother's voice painted pictures in her mind of quiet desert nights filled with mystery and wonder. Rosa described how the visitors seemed to understand human emotions better than humans did themselves. They could sense sadness, fear, or joy from across a room. But what made Lisa's skin tingle was how her mother described their eyes. Rosa said they weren't quite the same color as normal human eyes. They seemed to shift between different shades depending on the light, sometimes appearing almost silver or pale blue. When they looked at you, Rosa explained, it felt like looking into deep water where you couldn't see the bottom. The mysterious girl was particularly interested in Rosa's pregnancy. When Lisa was still growing inside her mother's womb, she would place her hand gently on Rosa's belly and smile in a way that seemed to hold countless secrets. The girl made predictions about what kind of person Lisa would become, what talents she might have, and what challenges she would face in life. Years passed, and Lisa grew from a curious child into a teenager, then into a young adult. As she got older, she began to wonder if her mother's stories were really true or just products of imagination. Living in a small desert town could make people feel lonely, and maybe these tales were Rosa's way of making life seem more exciting and mysterious. Lisa started to think that perhaps her mother had watched too many science fiction movies. Over the years, the isolation of desert life, with its endless stretches of sand and rock, might have made Rosa's mind create these elaborate stories to fill the quiet evenings. After all, small towns were full of local legends and strange tales that grew bigger with each telling. When Lisa reached her mid-20s, her mother became very sick. Rosa fought bravely against her illness, but eventually she lost the battle. During her final days, Rosa kept insisting that her stories about the visitors were completely real. She would grab Lisa's hand with whatever strength she had left and make her promise to remember every detail of the tales she had shared over the years. After Rosa passed away, Lisa felt like a chapter of her life had closed forever. She assumed that all those mysterious bedtime stories would now just be cherished memories of time spent with her beloved mother. Lisa had no idea that these weren't just random stories Rosa had made up to entertain a sleepy child. What Lisa didn't know was that every single detail her mother had shared was actually a carefully preserved memory. Rosa hadn't been telling fictional tales to pass the time. She had been passing down real experiences, preparing Lisa's mind for something that was yet to come. The stories weren't entertainment, they were training. Rosa had spent years planting seeds in Lisa's consciousness, making her familiar with ideas that would otherwise be too overwhelming to accept. Every description of the visitors, every detail about their unusual eyes, every mention of their mysterious knowledge, all of it was real information being carefully transferred from one generation to the next. The bedtime stories had been Rosa's way of preparing Lisa for a destiny that had been decided long before Lisa was even born. But Lisa wouldn't understand this truth for quite some time. For now, she simply missed her mother and treasured the memory of those quiet evenings filled with tales of mysterious visitors who might or might not have been real. Little did Lisa know that very soon she would discover that her mother's stories weren't stories at all. They were memories, and those memories were about to become her own reality. 3 weeks after Rosa's funeral, Lisa found herself standing in her mother's empty house. The silence felt heavy, broken only by the occasional creak of old wooden floors. She had been putting off this difficult task, but now she needed to go through her mother's belongings and decide what to keep, what to donate, and what to throw away. The house felt strange without Rosa's presence. Every room held memories of shared meals, quiet conversations, and those unforgettable bedtime stories. Lisa walked slowly from room to room, touching familiar objects and remembering better times. Her mother's favorite coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter, and her reading glasses rested on the side table next to her chair. Lisa started with the easy things first. She packed clothes for donation and gathered important papers into neat piles. But as she worked her way through the house, she noticed something odd. Her mother had been unusually organized in her final months, almost as if she had been preparing for someone to search through everything in the living room. Lisa found photo albums arranged in perfect order by year. In the kitchen, all the important documents were filed neatly in labeled folders. Even Rosa's bedroom had been tidied in a way that seemed deliberate, like she wanted to make sure nothing important would be missed. While cleaning Rosa's bedroom, Lisa noticed that one of the floorboards near the closet looked slightly different from the others. It seemed newer, and when she stepped on it, it made a hollow sound. Curiosity got the better of her, and she found a hammer in her mother's toolbox to pry up the board. Underneath the loose floorboard was a metal box that Lisa had never seen before. It was about the size of a show box, but much heavier, made of some kind of steel that felt cold to the touch. The box had a simple combination lock on the front, and Lisa wondered how long it had been hidden there. She tried her mother's birthday as the combination, then her own birthday, but nothing worked. Finally, she remembered a date Rosa had mentioned many times in her bedtime stories, the night she claimed to have first met the mysterious visitors. Lisa entered those numbers, and the lock clicked open with a satisfying sound. Inside the box, Lisa discovered things that made her heart race. There were dozens of photographs, some in color and some in black and white. The pictures showed Rosa as a young woman, maybe in her 20s, standing next to people who looked exactly like the visitors from her bedtime stories. Lisa picked up each photo with trembling hands. The people in the pictures had that same unusual quality Rosa had always described. Their skin seemed to have a subtle glow, and their eyes appeared to hold depths that regular human eyes didn't have. Most shocking of all, one of the figures appeared in multiple photos taken over several years, but she never seemed to age at all. Besides the photographs, the box contained what looked like pieces of metal that didn't match any technology Lisa had ever seen. The objects were lightweight but incredibly strong, and they seemed to change color slightly depending on how the light hit them. Some pieces were perfectly smooth, while others had intricate patterns carved into their surfaces. But the most incredible discovery was a thick notebook filled with Rosa's handwriting. The journal spanned 30 years, starting from when Rosa was just 18 years old. Page after page documented encounters with the mysterious visitors, complete with dates, times, and detailed descriptions of their conversations. Lisa sat on her mother's bedroom floor, and read entry after entry with growing amazement. Rosa had recorded conversations about technology that didn't exist on Earth, discussions about other worlds, and predictions about future events. Many of those predictions had come true with frightening accuracy. The journal contained details about Lisa's own life that made her skin crawl. The visitors had somehow known about her career choice years before she had even decided what she wanted to do. They had predicted her failed marriage before she had even met her husband. Most disturbing of all, they had known about Rosa's illness. Months before any symptoms appeared, Rosa's handwriting became shakier in the later entries, clearly written during her final illness, but her words remained clear and urgent. She wrote about preparing Lisa for something important, about passing down knowledge that had been carefully preserved for decades. The final entry in the journal was dated just 2 weeks before Rosa died. Lisa read it 3 times before the words fully sank in. Her mother had written, "They told me Lisa's time is coming soon. The young woman with the ancient eyes will recognize her immediately, just like she recognized me all those years ago. I have done my job preparing Lisa through the stories, planning the memories she will need. When they come for her, she will understand everything." Lisa closed the journal and sat in stunned silence. Her mother's bedtime stories suddenly took on a completely different meaning. They weren't fictional tales meant to entertain a child. They were real memories being carefully passed down, preparing Lisa for encounters that Rosa knew would eventually happen. Looking at the photographs again, Lisa realized she was staring at documented proof that her mother's stories had been true. All along, the mysterious visitors were real, and somehow, they had been planning for Lisa's involvement in whatever they were doing for her entire life. As evening approached and shadows grew longer in the bedroom, Lisa carefully put everything back in the metal box. Her hand shook as she realized that her ordinary life might be about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. The stories she had dismissed as her mother's imagination were actually preparation for a destiny that had been decided before she was even born. 3 months had passed since Lisa discovered the metal box with her mother's secrets. She carried the journal with her everywhere, reading and rereading the entries until she had memorized every word. The photographs were tucked safely in her purse, physical proof that her mother's stories weren't just imagination. Lisa found herself drawn to the desert highway, where Rosa claimed many of her encounters had taken place. It was a lonely stretch of road that connected their small town to the next city, winding through miles of sand and scattered rocks. During the day, the road was boring and empty, but at night, it felt different somehow, like anything could happen in that vast darkness. On this particular evening, Lisa had been visiting Rosa's grave in the town cemetery. She always felt closer to her mother there, sitting by the simple headstone and talking about her day as if Rosa could still hear her. The sun had set while she was there, and now she was driving home on the desert highway under a sky full of bright stars. The old car Rosa had left her wasn't the most reliable vehicle. It made strange noises, and sometimes the engine would sputter for no apparent reason. Lisa had been meaning to take it to a mechanic, but money was tight since she had taken time off work to deal with her mother's affairs. About halfway home, the car started making a new sound, a grinding noise that definitely wasn't normal. Lisa pulled over to the side of the road and tried starting the engine again, but it wouldn't turn over. The headlights dimmed and then went out completely, leaving her sitting in complete darkness. She reached for her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. This part of the desert was known for poor cell phone coverage, and Lisa realized she might be stuck there for hours before another car came along. The highway was rarely busy, especially this late at night. Lisa sat in the silent car, trying to decide what to do. She could start walking, but the nearest town was at least 10 miles away. The desert at night could be dangerous, with wild animals and the risk of getting lost in the darkness. She decided to wait and hope that someone would drive by soon. That's when she noticed the lights in the sky died at first. Lisa thought they might be aircraft from the military base that was located somewhere in the region. But these lights were different from any airplane she had ever seen. They moved in patterns that didn't make sense, hovering in one spot and then suddenly shifting to another location without any visible transition. The lights weren't harsh and bright like aircraft lights. Instead, they glowed with a soft, gentle radiance that seemed almost alive. They pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat made of light, and they were gradually getting closer to where Lisa sat in her disabled car. Instead of feeling afraid, Lisa experienced something unexpected, a deep sense of calm that seemed to wash over her like warm water. All her worry about being stranded disappeared, replaced by a strange feeling that everything was happening exactly as it was supposed to happen. The lights descended slowly toward the highway, and Lisa could see that they were attached to something that her mind struggled to understand. It wasn't exactly a vehicle in any normal sense. The craft seemed to bend light around itself, making it difficult to see where it ended and the night sky began. 3 figures emerged from the craft and walked toward Lisa's car. Even in the dim light, she could see that they moved with the same fluid grace her mother had described in her stories. They approached without making any sound, their feet seeming to barely touch the ground. 2 of the figures appeared to be adults, but the third was unmistakably younger. As they got closer, Lisa's heart began to race. The young woman looked exactly like the person in her mother's photographs, the one with the ancient eyes, who had shown special interest in Rose's family. The young woman walked directly to Lisa's car and stood beside the driver's window. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from inside Lisa's mind rather than through her ears. "Lisa Rodriguez," the woman said, and hearing her own name spoken with such familiarity by a complete stranger sent chills down Lisa's spine. "Your mother Rosa told us so much about you over the years. We have been waiting for this moment." For a very long time, Lisa stared at the woman's face, barely able to believe what she was seeing. This was the same person from the photographs, completely unchanged after 30 years. Her skin had that subtle glow Rosa had always described, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain centuries of knowledge and experience. "I know this must be confusing for you," the woman continued, her voice gentle and understanding. "But Rosa prepared you well with her stories. Everything she told you was true, and now it's time for you to understand why we've been watching your family for so long." The recognition in the woman's eyes was immediate and profound. She looked at Lisa not like a stranger meeting someone for the first time, but like a beloved relative greeting family after a long separation. There was love in that gaze, and familiarity, and something that felt like coming home. Lisa's hands trembled as she rolled down her car window. All the questions she had been carrying since finding her mother's journal seemed to crowd together in her throat, making it difficult to speak. "Are you real?" was all she managed to whisper. The woman smiled, and in that smile, Lisa saw the same warmth and kindness that had shone through every one of her mother's bedtime stories. "We are as real as you are," the woman replied, "and we have so much to show you." The woman extended her hand toward Lisa, and without hesitation, Lisa took it. The moment their skin touched, Lisa felt a warm sensation flow through her entire body. It wasn't scary or uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in the safest blanket she had ever known. "My name is Kira," the woman said as she helped Lisa step out of her car. "I knew your mother when she was about your age. I also knew your grandmother and her mother before that. We have been connected to your family for many generations." Lisa looked around and realized that somehow they were no longer standing beside the highway. Instead, she found herself inside the mysterious craft she had seen descending from the sky. The interior was unlike anything she could have imagined. It seemed to stretch much further than should have been possible based on what she had seen from outside. The walls glowed with the same soft light as Kira's skin, and the air felt clean and fresh in a way that made every breath feel energizing. There were no sharp corners anywhere, and everything curved smoothly into everything else, as if the entire space had been grown rather than built. "Don't worry about your car," Kira said, noticing Lisa glancing back toward where they had been. "Time moves differently here. When we return you to the highway, only a few minutes will have passed in your world, and your car will be working perfectly again. Lisa wanted to ask how that was possible, but Kira gestured for her to sit in what appeared to be a chair. That molded itself perfectly to her body as she settled into it. The other two figures remained nearby but gave them space to talk privately. I know you have many questions, Kira began, settling into her own chair across from Lisa. Rosa kept detailed records of everything we discussed over the years. She was an excellent student and an even better teacher. The stories she told you weren't just entertainment. They were lessons preparing you for this moment. Kira's eyes seemed to shift colors as she spoke, sometimes appearing silver, sometimes pale blue, exactly as Rosa had described in her bedtime stories. When she looked directly at Lisa, it felt like being seen completely, as if every thought and feeling was visible. We are not aliens in the way your movies and books describe, Kira explained. We are travelers between dimensions, moving through spaces that exist alongside your world but remain mostly invisible to human eyes. Think of it like living in a house with many rooms. You normally stay in one room, but we can walk through all of them. Lisa tried to understand what Kira was telling her. It was like trying to imagine colors that didn't exist or sounds that no one had ever heard. But somehow, because of all the stories Rosa had told her, the concepts didn't feel completely foreign. Your family bloodline is special, Kira continued. Certain genetic patterns allow some humans to perceive our dimension and communicate with us more easily. These traits are rare and precious, passed down through specific family lines across many generations. Kira stood and walked to what looked like a wall, but when she touched it, images began to appear on its surface like a living movie screen. Lisa saw pictures of women who looked remarkably similar to her mother and herself, going back what appeared to be centuries. Your great-great-grandmother was the first in your family line that we contacted, Kira said, pointing to an image of a woman in old-fashioned clothing standing beside a figure that looked exactly like Kira. Then your great-grandmother, then your grandmother, and finally Rosa, each generation. We share knowledge and prepare the next person in line for their role as a bridge between our worlds. Lisa stared at the images, recognizing facial features that had been passed down through her family. But why? She asked. What do you need us for? Kira's expression became more serious. Your world is approaching changes that will affect both dimensions, climate shifts, technological advances, and human consciousness evolution are creating ripples that touch our realm as well. We need human partners who can help guide these changes in positive directions. More images appeared on the wall, showing scenes of possible futures, some beautiful and hopeful, others concerning and dark. Lisa saw cities powered by clean energy, people living in harmony with nature, and technologies that seemed like magic. But she also saw other possibilities that made her heart ache. The future isn't fixed, Kira explained. Every choice made by every person creates new possibilities. But some choices have bigger impacts than others. People like you, with your genetic gifts and family preparation, can influence outcomes in ways that most humans cannot. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the responsibility Kira was describing. I'm just a normal person, she said. I work at a library and live in a small apartment. How could I possibly affect the future of the world? Kira smiled warmly. Rosa said the same thing when she was your age. But look at how well she prepared. Every story she told, every detail she shared, every moment she spent helping you understand our reality, all of that was her contribution to shaping a better future. The images on the wall changed to show Rosa as a young woman meeting with Kira and learning the same things Lisa was learning now. Lisa watched her mother make the same expressions of wonder and confusion that she was probably making herself. The bedtime stories weren't just stories, Kira said gently. They were memories being passed down, preparing your mind to accept truths that would otherwise be too overwhelming. Rosa spent her entire adult life getting you ready for this moment. Lisa realized that her mother's illness and death hadn't been random tragedy. Even that had been part of the preparation, forcing Lisa to discover the hidden journal and photographs at exactly the right time in her life. Every person in your family line has faced this same choice, Kira said, returning to sit across from Lisa, and every one of them has chosen to help us in their own way, while remaining in your dimension to prepare the next generation. Lisa looked into Kira's ancient eyes and finally understood the recognition she had seen there. It wasn't the look of someone meeting a stranger. It was the look of family welcoming family home. As the night hours passed inside Kira's craft, Lisa felt like she was living in a dream that had somehow become real. Everything around her defied normal understanding, yet it all felt strangely familiar, as if her mother's bedtime stories had been preparing her mind for exactly this experience. Kira had been patiently answering Lisa's questions, explaining concepts that should have been impossible to grasp. But thanks to Rosa's careful preparation through years of storytelling, Lisa found herself understanding things that would have driven most people to madness. The time has come for you to make a choice, Kira said as the first hints of dawn began to appear through what Lisa assumed were windows, though they seemed to show the outside world in ways that normal glass never could. It's the same choice that Rosa faced and her mother before her. Going back through generations of your family, Lisa felt her heart begin to race. She had been so caught up in learning about Kira's world and her family's hidden history that she hadn't fully considered what all of this meant for her own future. You can come with us, Kira explained, her voice gentle but serious. Join us in our interdimensional work. Help us guide the changes that are coming to both our worlds. You would gain abilities and knowledge beyond anything humans normally experience. You would live far longer than any normal human lifespan and see wonders that most people couldn't even imagine. The offer was tempting in ways Lisa hadn't expected. The idea of exploring other dimensions, of gaining wisdom and powers that could help shape the future, appealed to something deep inside her that she hadn't known existed. But, Kira continued, if you choose that path, you would have to leave your current life behind. You couldn't maintain relationships with normal humans or live in your dimension the way you do now. It would mean saying goodbye to the world. Forever. Lisa thought about her small apartment, her job at the library, her few close friends. Her life wasn't exciting or glamorous, but it was hers. More importantly, she thought about her mother's choice and began to understand why Rosa had decided to stay. What's the other option? Lisa asked, though she was beginning to suspect she already knew the answer. You can remain in your world, Kira said, but now with full knowledge of the greater reality that exists beyond what most humans can see. You would become a guardian of this knowledge, just as Rosa was, and your grandmother before her. Kira stood and walked to the wall, which again displayed images as she touched it. This time, Lisa saw Rosa at different stages of her life, as a young woman making her choice, as a mother telling bedtime stories, as an older woman carefully hiding photographs and journals for Lisa to find. Rosa chose to stay because she understood something important, Kira explained. Each generation needs someone who remains connected to normal human life, while carrying our knowledge, someone who can prepare the next person in the family line and help bridge the gap between worlds. Lisa watched the images of her mother and felt a deep understanding wash over her. Rosa hadn't just been telling stories, she had been fulfilling a sacred duty, passing down knowledge that had been carefully preserved through generations. If I stay, Lisa said, what would I need to do? Kira smiled, and Lisa could see pride and affection in her ancient eyes. You would live your life much as you do now, but with the awareness of our presence and our mission. When the time comes, you would prepare your own children or the next person in your family line, just as Rosa prepared you from somewhere within her clothing. Kira produced a small device that looked like a mixture of crystal and metal. It was beautiful and strange, changing color as it caught the light. This communication device would allow you to contact us when needed, Kira explained, placing it in Lisa's hands, not for casual conversation, but for guidance during important moments or if you encounter situations where our knowledge could help. Lisa held the device, feeling its surprising warmth. It seemed to pulse gently in her palm, almost like it was alive. There's something else you should know, Kira said. her expression becoming more serious. "The reason we've been working with your family for so long, the reason we chose your bloodline specifically, it's because you're not just random humans. We decided to contact." Lisa looked up from the device, sensing that Kira was about to reveal something important. "Generations ago, some of our people chose to remain in your dimension permanently. They integrated into human society and started families. Your bloodline carries genetic traces of our people. In a very real sense, Lisa, we're not strangers contacting you from another world. We're distant family welcoming you home." The revelation hit Lisa like lightning. All the recognition she had seen in Kira's eyes, all the familiarity she had felt despite never meeting these beings before. It was because they were actually related. The mysterious visitors weren't aliens at all. They were relatives who had chosen different paths through the dimensions. "Rosa was my many times great-granddaughter," Kira said softly, "and you are mine as well. Every person in your family line who has made this choice has been choosing whether to rejoin their interdimensional family or stay and continue the human branch of our bloodline." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes as she finally understood the true depth of her mother's sacrifice. Rosa hadn't just been helping strangers, she had been serving her own extended family, while raising her human daughter with love and care. Standing there in the impossible craft as dawn broke over the desert, Lisa made her choice. She would follow in her mother's footsteps, remaining in the human world but now carrying the knowledge and responsibility that came with understanding her true heritage. Years later, Lisa found herself sitting beside a small bed, telling bedtime stories to her own daughter. She spoke of mysterious visitors with ancient eyes, of interdimensional travelers who watched over certain families, and of the important role that ordinary people could play in shaping the future. Her daughter listened with wide eyes, just as Lisa once had, not knowing that these weren't just stories. They were family memories being passed down, preparing another generation for the choice that would someday be theirs to make. The cycle continued, as it had for generations, built on love, sacrifice, and the understanding that some knowledge was too important to ever let disappear.